I wish to begin by thanking the Thabo Mbeki Foundation for inviting me to deliver remarks at the inaugural Africa Peace and Security Dialogue. To show the importance we attach to this conference, I have just landed from London, and came straight here. And I have not been in the country since the UN General Assembly. My kids are complaining. But this engagement is very important. It is important that the South African government participate in shaping the discourse, but also in finding long-lasting solutions for the continent. I further wish to commend and welcome the Foundation for thinking of this initiative to host an annual dialogue dedicated to finding practical solutions to the peace and security challenges facing the continent. The time to bring back Pixley Saga Seme's regeneration code is now. And I quote, "The regeneration of Africa belongs to this new and powerful period." By this term, regeneration, I wish to be understood to mean the entrance into a new life, embracing the diverse phases of higher, complex existence. As South Africa, welcome all you to commit this to rest of the moment. The spirit of regeneration by Pixley Gaizaga Seme admonished us to do. The state of Africa at this critical conjuncture, a world of extraordinary danger, of unthinkable catastrophe, was it this with these nations that continue to seek war and not peace? What becomes our role to find this missing needle of peace in the continent and the world? I'm here to say that the 7th administration will remain committed to the African agenda. We are not deviating from it. We pursue our agenda in the spirit of genuine partnership and not hegemony as some will claim, but to find long-lasting solutions with our African brothers and sisters in the continents. Evidence suggests that when all variations are put, it is said that there are more than 120 conflicts playing themselves out in the world. 60% of the United Nations Security Council peacekeeping budget and focus on the African conflicts and peacekeeping. Currently, the two most worrying conflicts which have led to devastating humanitarian crises are in the Eastern DRC and Sudan. During our visit abroad, go and advance in the African agenda in many parts of the world, this has been raised as an issue of concern. Of course, we are committed as the GNU to find an end to these wars with our government and colleagues, and will continue to participate in the African Union peace initiatives, including the initiatives of SADC. Unfortunately, both the conflicts I have referred to do not receive adequate attention from the international community compared to the ongoing war between Russia and Ukraine, the devastating war in Gaza, and the recent tensions between Israel and the Arab neighbors. Excellencies, in the past few years, the continent has also experienced a resurgence of coups. 6 member states remain suspended from the African Union because of the unconstitutional government changes. I hope this conference will help us to find long-lasting solutions to some of the legitimate concerns of the West Africa in relation to social and colonial vintage that still haunt parts of the continent. This should be addressed. The continent should be able to extricate itself from the colonial vintage so that the natural resources of the African continent should be beneficial to the children of this continent and to the future generations. South Africa will continue in harmony and engage with other regional bodies, particularly for regional economic communities, which are the building blocks of Africa's integration. The resurgence of violence in the Sahel region should concern us all. Let us all lend a helping hand to the peoples of that region to find lasting solutions to their conflicts. The threat of terrorism and violent extremism is one of the most pressing peace and security challenges that the continent is facing. Dealing with this has spread to more regions of the continent, including Southern Africa. The terrorism and violent extremist acts in Cabo Delgado are not only a security threat for Mozambique, but for the wider Southern African region. It is in recognition of this that South Africa contributed troops towards the SADC mission in Mozambique, otherwise known as SAMIM. In addition, South Africa also deployed troops to the eastern part of the DRC as part of the Summit DRC together with Malawi and Tanzania. But it is political solution that will seek and find a long-lasting solution. And South Africa support the Luanda process as led by President Lorenzo in Angola. And we urge and support the Libyan authorities in hosting the long-awaited inclusive reconciliation conference driven by the Libyan people. As the co-chair of the AU ad hoc high-level committee on South Sudan, otherwise known as the C5, we are there to meet our continental obligations. South Africa will continue to support the leaders and the people of South Sudan in the transition process towards a stable democracy. In this regard, South Africa and other C5 countries are in the process of identifying suitable dates for a C5 ministerial visit to Juba to engage on all stakeholders to ascertain challenges and obstacles that the country faces in hosting its first ever general election since independence, as mandated by the AU. In the past 30 years, South Africa has exerted huge political and diplomatic efforts at high level of leadership to negotiate conflicts on the continent, including those with the Democratic Republic of Congo, Burundi, Zimbabwe, and Lesotho. Furthermore, South Africa is also one of the top troop contributions to both the AU and UN peace support operations. But we do this with great understanding as partners in the continent. In recognition of South Africa's role in maintaining peace and security on the continent, the AU Assembly appointed South Africa to the AU champion for promoting AU-UN cooperation and peace and security. It will be recalled that it was because of South Africa's efforts during its first tenure in the UN Security Council in 2007 that the United Nations Security Council took a deliberate interest in coordinating its peacekeeping efforts with regional organizations such as the AU. South Africa also placed the issue of financing peace operations on the continent through the UN-assessed contributions on the UN Council agenda. We are glad that there is a movement in this regard. In this regard, the continent must work together with the UN and its member states to operationalize this resolution, which will greatly assist in financing Africa-led peace operation agenda. South Africa will use its chairpersonship of the G20 to action the Pact of the Future as adopted by the UN General Assembly, reform of the global financial architecture, the governance of AI that should be inclusive, refocus on the implementation of the Sustainable Development Goals, to put forward Agenda 2063 of the AU on the global pedestal. Its financing remains critical. It is inconceivable that only 3% of the financing aimed for climate change goes to the global south and in particular sub-Saharan Africa, which is the most affected by climate change. Our hosting of the G20 will put and zoom these matters back into the table, that there must be finance that flows into the continent with the deliberate intent to mitigate the effects of climate change. The disproportionate funding of climate change in the continent should be mitigated, and all African countries should speak in one voice that there must be more funding for us to be able to respond to this unmitigated disaster of climate change. As we face the undeniable reality of climate change wreaking havoc on our society, with the El Nino effect drastically altering agricultural landscape, societal norms in the southern Africa, a glaring inconsistency remains. The northern hemisphere countries primarily responsible for this climate catastrophe must fulfill their commitments in the 2015 Paris Agreement. Furthermore, to the above, the UN Secretary General's report on critical minerals should be welcomed by all. The report acknowledges the huge mineral endowments the African continent is blessed with, but points to the fact that Africa should be the beneficiary of the current wave of the critical minerals through value add in the continent and beneficiating and local manufacturing. The African continent, in particular the AU and SADC, should also work with speed to find a critical mineral strategy, because economists argue that this is not stable, is evolving, and is moving at a fast pace. If the continent does not act with speed, this wave may also pass us. The natural resources of the continent must help shape the reasoning and us finding the solutions on many of the sources of our conflicts in the continent. Through the Africa Free Trade Area, we must build Africa's beneficial projects and manufacturing capabilities and have a unified voice on critical minerals as a continent. If there is one issue that all of us should be able to speak in one voice, in all the capitals of the world that we've been, from China to the US and recently in London, everyone is clamoring for the critical minerals that are going to drive the future in EV and artificial intelligence. And where is the African continent and SADC in particular's response and its strategy in ensuring that these critical minerals do benefit the continent, help us with economic growth, and also help us to resolve our challenges of unemployment in the region and in the continent. And these could also lead to peace and security for our own continent. A more inclusive Security Council, with all member states having equal powers, will allow the institution to respond effectively to peace and security challenges on the continent and in other parts of the world. As I've said earlier, the Security Council deals mostly with conflicts in the African continent. It is inconceivable that we still do not have permanent representatives in the Security Council. Yes, we will fight for the 2 veto holding seats and more, in line with the Ezuluni consensus. But if it means that we need to reconsider some aspects as the African continent to be able to move forward, we may need to do so, Dr. Shaba. I know that former President Mbeki, you led this discussion on the adoption of the Ezuluni consensus, which remains our guiding tool as the African continent. And we must continue to claim and speak in one voice, and if we do reconsider, we should also do so together as the continent. South Africa's involvement in peacemaking, peacekeeping, and peace-building efforts stems from the understanding that peace and stability are essential for Africa's socio-economic development. This holistic approach underscores the interconnectedness of peace, security, and development, highlighting that achieving broader developmental objectives only requires stability. Agenda 2063 aims to achieve sustainable and inclusive growth across the continent, with the flagship program of Silencing the Gun, playing a crucial role in accelerating the continent's development. President Cyril Ramaphosa emphasized this during the 14th Extraordinary Session on Silencing the Guns in 2020, highlighting the importance of implementing the AU Master Roadmap of practical steps to silence the guns. We must meet the objectives of the Africa Continental Free Trade Area together. A paltry 17% of trading amongst ourselves is well not impressive. We have to do more to ensure this is implemented. This will lead to sustainable stability and also lead to more sustainable knowledge amongst ourselves. If we trade with each other as the continent, it also means we will know each other. We will also socialize together. This will also enhance the opportunities of decreasing levels of xenophobia and of any other misunderstandings amongst each other. This will build and will demolish the borders, but enable regional integration even at a people-to-people level. This we have to do in working together also with the African diaspora. It's a task we dare not fail on because our future depends on it. Thank you very much.